Hello, good evening, everyone, and good morning to some part of the world, whoever and wherever you are. So it's been 3, 4 days since the Manchester derby is done. Uh, I had my regular work, I had gone to work, and I was constantly thinking about the game. I was trying to think what exactly happened in the game. I'm sure you would have watched the other video which I had published on Sunday. But what constantly came into my mind was this a one off thing? Look, Manchester United can beat Man City. We've beaten Liverpool at Anfield this year. But the real test is when we play Arsenal. And this time we are going to play them at Emirates. But underlying that point, right, what I was trying to think was Manchester United beat City 2-0. And for the first time in a long way, it didn't feel lucky. This wasn't a smash and grab win. There was no chaos in the game. This wasn't vibes football as we would have thought. There was structure in the team. And you would have seen in my previous video where I said structure is always greater than possession. You need to have structure. But here is the real question, right? Which I've been asking myself for a couple of days now. Was this a one off against Pep Guardiola, or did Michael Carrick quietly show what Manchester United should actually become? Look, I'm not here to say that if Michael Carrick takes us to the Champions League, he should get the permanent job or he should be sacked in between, whatever. I'm not here to say that, and that's a conversation for later day. But I want to appreciate someone who's actually made football a lot simple. Michael Carrick did not reinvent anything against Man City. Okay, he simplified them. And in today's episode at PN Playbook, we are going to break down. This is my take on what Carrick must build on, what United should discard immediately, and why this whole conversation about possession is useless and why it is always about control. So let's break it down step by step. But before we actually break it down, let's understand the context of this whole scenario, right? So Michael Carrick replaced Ruben Amorim. Now, Michael Carrick didn't inherit a broken team. Okay, let's be very honest about it. United were doing decent under Ruben Amorim. We were almost in the race for top four. He inherited a confused one. Okay, under Ruben Amorim, United had a very defined 3-4-2-1 structure, or three at the back, five in the middle, however you want to call it. The clear principles were width, overload combinations, and you saw the results. They were mixed. On paper, it worked at times. If I have to say the positive thing about Ruben Amorim, United were third in the league for XG difference. They even improved ball security in build-up. When I say ball security, which basically means that when Ruben Amorim was our manager, right, whatever you did, there was a certain pattern for it. And I can prove that to you in the coming 2, 3 minutes. But football isn't played on spreadsheets. Okay. If you remember Ruben Amorim, he was a lot on data analytics. He was a lot of guy on patterns. He was a lot of guy on principles. But Amorim's biggest wins, for example, Liverpool at Anfield, okay, they were pure survival wins. Long ball, Harry Maguire header, or Bruno Fernandes trying to cross the ball, Maguire header, right? So against most teams, United look like a side overthinking simple problems in football. Players performing roles and not going by instinct. And what was the biggest issue because of that? The system often asked players to be something what they are not. And if you can't find yourself about who you are in a football pitch, chances are that you're not going to deliver in a match. For example, Bruno Fernandes at number 8 position. Every Manchester United was screaming on top of their voice saying, he is our best creator. Play him at number 10. In spite of him playing at number 8, he was still the highest chance creator in Premier League. But like I said, the system often asked players to be something they're not. That was the first decision which Carrick had to make. And that you don't need a tactical genius to do that. It was pure honesty. All right. What Carrick did was he just went four at the back, put Bruno Fernandes as a number 10, and things changed. But we'll go in depth about it. Okay. So the first thing which I wanted to talk about is what are three things which Michael Carrick must build on. The first thing I would always say to any manager, even if I'm not a qualified manager ever, right? But I'll always say this because of what I've read, what I've seen, and what I've observed along the world of football, right? Compactness wins over possession. It's the bottom line of football. Against Manchester City, if you remember, United had a 32.5% or 36% possession. Now, that's not a typo if you ever read it. Because if you think about it, a team who had only 32% of the possession, but City's XG was only 0.47, which basically means that whenever they had the ball, they never created anything. Because Carrick understood something crucial. This United does not need the ball to control a game. Instead of stretching the pitch vertically or horizontally, United compressed it. Now, what do you actually mean by that? We'll try and see in an example what it basically means, right? If I have to tell you vertical or horizontal way of extending a pitch. Now, the first thing is you use wingers to extend the pitch. I mean, if you have watched football for ages, right? Every team always relies a lot on wingers. But Michael Carrick decided to do something extremely different. Now, let me explain that to you with a diagram or with a tactics board where you can actually see and understand what happened in that game. Now, if you remember our lineup looked somewhat like this, right? Mbomo, Fernandes, Amad Diallo, Dorgu, Mainu, Casemiro, etc. Now, the first thing what Michael Carrick instructed or did was he put Dorgu on the left side and he put Diallo on the right side. Now, because of that, what happened was there was enough width for them. Now, if I have to draw and show what Dorgo can do, right, this is what he can do. If again I have to draw a particular section, I can actually say that Dorgu was responsible for this particular part of the entire pitch. Now, again, if I had to explain this to someone, what basically it led for United was, I'll just think from here. See this entire part. He decided to take on this particular set of people. Now, I do understand that this particular section is not something which Dorgu is very comfortable at, but he told Dorgu one very simple thing: if you get the ball, just run with it. Okay. Now, if I had to actually change, so this is how Man City would have played. I'm just changing the lineup for Man City, so it becomes easy for us to understand as well. Now, before I actually change and do all of that particular stuff, right? Let me try and explain to you one more thing, which I've been very keenly following about Man City. Over a period of time, Man City has been a joke in the sense that Pep Guardiola has found a way to beat teams which, by hook or crook, however you want to say it, right? He's always done that. Okay. Now, when he always does that, what it leads to is a very simple thing. He understands where the game is moving. He's a manager who I believe is way ahead of his time. Now, Michael Carrick realized that, you know what, to beat this team, I need to be a step smarter. So, what did Michael Carrick do? Like I was explaining, he put Dorgo on the wing. The second thing he did was he put Bruno Fernandes at the number 10 position. Now, why is it such a big problem, right? Why was every United fan trying to say again and again, Bruno should play number 10, Bruno should play number 10? Just go back 3-4 weeks back when Bruno was at number 8. Under Amorim, Bruno Fernandes often dropped deep. Okay, that is to help ball progression, compensate for midfield imbalance. It made United functional, but it neutered United's best weapon, which is Bruno Fernandes's attacking instinct. Against City, Bruno played as a proper number 10, created 6 big chances, assisted with a perfectly timed through ball. This is what Bruno Fernandes does. This is what he does for a living, and this is what made him Bruno Fernandes. Timing, risk, creating chaos in defenders' minds in the final third. Now, Carrick didn't ask him to fix problems. All he asked him was, you decide the games for me. You decide where the tempo is going, but at a number 10 position. Now, this is non negotiable. Now, you build the team around this version of Bruno. Now, if I had to explain this to you, even in a much better way, let me try to explain to you in the diagram. All right, which I have been trying to say this for a lot of people. And whenever I was trying to explain this to multiple people, all they thought was, oh no, Bruno can do a job here. What is the big deal? Okay, now let's try and explain this in a very easy manner. Let's say that I am looking at Bruno Fernandes in this particular position, right? Now, when Bruno Fernandes, okay, I'm just highlighting here Bruno Fernandes. When I move Bruno Fernandes to somewhere around here, okay, let's assume Bruno Fernandes runs through the ball, or let's just assume how did he put the through ball, right? Bruno Fernandes was here. Mbuemo ran across Kusunov. Okay, he went across here for the finish. Now, what is the value of Bruno Fernandes? Because Rodri was already committed, Foden was somewhere here, that counter was far too often, which was happening in the game. Now, Bruno Fernandes here. So, what happens to why does everyone make a big fuss of Bruno Fernandes at number 10? It's because of this. When Bruno Fernandes plays here, his peripheral vision is this. You see? Now, what happens here is because of Amad Diallo constantly making a run, Dorgu making a constant run, okay, or overlapping Mbuomo, he is got the option of passing the ball to him, or if Kusunov decides to come and charge at him, he can even actually throw the ball to Dorgu wide. Mbuomo will be by the time in center, pass the ball to Mbuomo and goal. All right. The other option which could have happened for Bruno Fernandes was at that point of time, Amad Diallo was running and cutting across Max Alain. Now remember, Max Alain was, I mean, he's still a very young centre back. We don't know how his career will pan out. Max Allen, because of his inexperience, was constantly trying to charge Bruno Fernandes and Amad Diallo. Because of that, it also gave an option for Bruno Fernandes to say, you know what, Max, stand there, let the ball go here. Amad Diallo could have easily moved in and finished the game. Now, what I'm trying to say here is Bruno at number 10 adds all the value for Manchester United. Let's not forget one of the most important players who played that game, which is Patrick Dorgu. Remember, when Patrick Dorgu was signed, everyone said that he's a fullback or a wing back. Okay, Ruben Amorim even tried to say to us that no, his crossing is not good, so on and so forth. United under Amorim actually did something very good, and this is where I'll give credit to Ruben Amorim. They reduced the reliance on individual dribbles. Instead, there was a lot of runs, there was a lot of wing overloads, there was rotation between Ahmad and Mbuomo. That's good football. You don't create the third highest number of chances just by a fluke. Carrick saw that, and I think he said, you know what, I'll keep that. But crucially, he used it very selectively, but not obsessively. Against City, United attacked space very quickly. Not every move had to be rehearsed. There was freedom within structure. Now, this is football. Okay, this is elite level modern football. Now, we talked about three things which Carrick must do, which I have told you already. Bruno at number 10, that's the most important thing. Use of width, which makes Manchester United more dangerous. Third thing is compactness over possession. Don't worry about the possession stats. They're good to have, but must have to win a football game. And right now, Manchester United need 3 points more than beautiful football. That's what I would like to believe. Now, what are three things which Carrick should not do? The first thing is do not go back to Casemiro and Bruno double pivot. Let's be very honest about it. When Ruben Amorim said Bruno and Casemiro are going to be your midfield pivot for the season, we all knew we were going to struggle, right? We were hoping we would sign a midfielder, but you know how this board is. Under Amorim, United had a soft center. Teams consistently found space between the lines. The idea was a centre back steps into the midfield to help. In reality, centre backs hesitated. Midfield got overran. Opponents exploited the delay. But that is not my problem. I have no problem with that also. My problem was the midfield tracking. The collective responsibility in the midfield failed because there was a structure which was drilled into these United players, which they are not used to. Okay. If you don't believe me, I'll actually show you how predictable Amorim's total pass pattern was. What I'm trying to tell you is that if you are playing under Ruben Amorim, there are four passes which every player will make. Okay, when I say every player will make, it just tries to tell you that Amorim drilled into a structure where there was only one particular option for you to pass. Now, when you play football of that nature, right, you are more often than not going to be in a losing battle. Why am I saying that is when you drill structure, there are three things which happen to player. The first thing which happens to player is they don't play freely. The second and the most common thing which happens to a lot of footballers is that they lose their creativity. Third thing is if your midfield doesn't have the legs to run, you're going to be screwed in the long game. Now, if you don't believe me what I said, let me actually prove you by stats, which Athletic shared today morning. I was trying to read it. Athletic shared today morning, and this is exactly what they showed. Under Amorim, all right, the most common pass was back pass to the wingers. Okay, from goalkeeper to your wingers or your fullbacks. The second most common was wing back to midfield or wing back running with the ball. Again, the same pattern. Now, if you look at it, your average pass actually shows that from the midfield to the final third, there was absolutely nothing. Do you think this is a problem? I'll tell you what my problem is. Now, you see this particular side of things. Okay, no pass in your final third if you're attacking from this side. The game is shut in this midfield. Okay, your important aspects. So, for example, your Bruno Fernandes plays here. What is he trying to pass? Nothing, because he's trying to protect players here, here, or the other side. Is this a big problem in the long run? Of course, it is a problem. It does not help you create anything. But having said that, Amorim's system also did this. So basically meant that if Sane Lemens had a ball, long ball to your wing back, Sane Lemens had only one pass. You see your centre backs always trying to step into the midfield. It basically tries to say that if you're a Delict or a Euro or Martinez, right, your first option is here. Okay. Or your second option for these players is go around the back. Okay. Now, if you go around the back, you see you're going to invert it here. Now, this particular player will try to invert it here. Now, this will lead to two problems. What it leads to is there is enough gap on this particular side where people will utilize it. Don't forget, there is a Casemiro. All right. Now, Casemiro will decide to stay back, and this is Bruno Fernandes. He will go ahead. Now, what happens to your midfield? Right? You see this midfield, you remember what we saw? Your midfield is gone. But having said that, this did not change anything in under Michael Carrick. Under Michael Carrick, what Michael Carrick did was very simple. He said, let's try and look at what happens. And the data here shows that United in 2025-26, your midfield was the big problem. You see, right in the center, there is no one who can actually receive the ball. We all knew this, right? Throughout the season, we all knew this, that United need to sign a midfielder. Michael Carrick decided to do it the other way. What I'm trying to show you here is he made sure that someone like a Casemiro is not bothered about what is happening in the midfield. Okay. A Kobe Mainu, this is where the role of Kobe Mainu is important. Kobe Mainu was told that you just block the passing angles. Now try and see what's happening here. What Kobe Mainu is doing is he's not looking at the man who's running behind because there are two center backs already looking at. He's not even looking at the man who's running on his side, which is Phil Foden. He is knowing that Patrick Dorgu is going to run at him, but all he's trying to do is just block this particular channel. How is he going to block this channel? He will take two steps to run. Now look at Patrick Dorgu. Patrick Dorgu is not running towards the ball. Patrick Dorgu is running towards this particular space in Haaland's angle. The reason is very simple. Everyone in Premier League knows that shut down Haaland. For shutting down Haaland, shut down his midfield pass. Now, whoever plays in the midfield, Kevin De Bruyne or whoever want to do. But there was something interesting which I thought Carrick did, and which I think he should avoid a lot. This double pivot experiment, like I said, needs to stop. The centre backs jumping into the midfield. This is subtle but crucial, has to stop. Centre backs were encouraged to step out, restore numerical parity in midfield under Amorim. But Premier League is ruthless. Half a second of hesitation and you are exposed. Carrick removed that instruction. Instead, he did something which is fullbacks wide and midfielders recovered the balls inside. Lines stayed intact, which basically meant fewer decision points under pressure. Sometimes what I think is good coaching is about removing complexity. Okay. This is where the third point comes, the illusion of control through possession. This is the biggest philosophical shift which I have seen under Ruben Amorim. United have dropped 14 points from winning positions. Okay. Why? Because when they are ahead, they didn't know how to slow the game. Against City, United didn't panic after scoring. They didn't chase a third goal recklessly. They understood the game state. This wasn't passive. Okay. This was maturity. And it's something United have lacked for a decade. Carrick learned and leaned into it. Okay, and this is where I must say he should never abandon this. Now, let me try to tell you one more thing which I've been wanting to say to a lot of people. Now, Carrick has understood the role of Kobe Mino, which I think a lot of managers have never understood. Okay, now if you look at United, the defense is in a back four, and in the back four defense, Martinez and Maguire are so close to Haaland. Martinez here, I'll just highlight it to you here. Martinez's vision is entirely at Haaland and the space next to Harry Maguire. So what he's trying to say is that Haaland cannot run from me. If he runs, I'll run at him. Maguire is not even looking at Haaland. He's looking at Kobe Mino here and Patrick Dorgu. And the reason is very simple because when the ball comes through the midfield, Kobe Mino here is already attacking the ball, leaving his man Phil Foden. And Patrick Dorgu is already ready to attack this side of the wing. This is what Amorim's structure lacked. Amorim did not let his fullbacks press or wingbacks press so high. He made them press wide but not high. Now, if you look at Kobe Mino's position in Man City's game, you see he was all around. He was pressing. The red arrow shows he was pressing. So, for example, if I have to just circle it, you see where was he pressing? Here. He was pressing here. Okay. Now, Kobe Mainu did not have a brilliant game in the sense of statistics, but he had a brilliant game in the sense of positioning, which is what was Kobe Mainu's biggest drawback. Now, if I have to explain it to you even further, and if I'll just show you a GIF, which I've been saving for quite some time, all right. So, this is what happened in the game. Don't worry. This will not allow me to play the GIF, but basically, what I was trying to tell you is beating City is impressive, but City are a transition team dream opponent. Okay, the real test: low blocks, deep defenses, Old Trafford games where United must break down teams. Carrick's challenge isn't Pep Guardiola. All right, it's Bournemouth at home, Everton with 10 men, teams that refuse to engage with the ball so much. If he can blend structure, patience, selective aggression, this isn't a caretaker bounce. This will become a foundation for the next manager to come. Michael Carrick didn't promise revolution, he promised clarity. And sometimes clarity is the hardest thing to achieve at Manchester United. Look, this team doesn't need to become a Man City. All right, we all know that. Because if you think about Man City, they dominate control, they dominate possession. Arsenal are dominating defensively, so on and so forth. But Manchester United don't need to follow any of that pattern. But what Manchester United need to follow is to try and make a foundation. And like I said, sometimes clarity is the hardest thing to achieve, and even more hard at Manchester United. It needs to understand who it is, what it can do, and what it must stop pretending to be. If Carrick builds on that, United might finally stop chasing identities and this whole conversation around DNA, and they'll probably start owning one. Now, if you enjoyed this breakdown, this is PN Playbook, where football is just not about results. It's about trying to understand the game, and it is also trying to create value through the game. I would always urge people to like, subscribe, share the channel. If there is any particular topic which you want me to break down statistically or talk about it in general, please drop in your comments. I'll be more than happy to record it for you and upload it in my channel. Thank you. See you in the next episode of PN Playbook.